What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 14 of Let's Be Frank with your host, your friendly neighborhood bull, Frank Mattis, brought to you by the Old City Sports Network. Happy Veterans Day to those who served our great country of the United States. I have a brother in law, Joe, who was a Marine. My cousin Steve was a Marine. My grandfather um, served in the Army in World War II. I know a lot of people have people close to them who have served. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for protecting our great freedoms so we can enjoy Sundays like yesterday. Happy Veterans Day to everybody out there. A lot on the docket today. Obviously, the Eagles put a hurting on the woeful Dallas Cowboys, putting the nail in the coffin of the 2024 Dallas Cowboys season. I will give you some of my takeaways and also preview a huge matchup Thursday night against the Washington Commanders and also preview what is on the horizon. I will give you a little bit of Sixers thoughts. Not really. It's really just how um, unwatchable regular season basketball is. I have a rant about that. A lot of good stuff today. So let's talk about the Eagles. So last week on the pod, as you saw, I pretty much was reluctant to give any preview, and with good reason, because Dallas sucks. Plain and simple. We like to throw that phrase around, from time to time, and sometimes it's not really warranted because they're usually pretty consistent. They're usually relatively good. Obviously, their season crashes and burns in the most spectacular fashions, but nonetheless, they're competitive. They're good. We haven't beaten them since 2017 in Jerry World, so that shows you that they have been competitive, but they are not competitive anymore. They are a really bad football team, and it was very evident on Sunday. And I knew that this was going to be a blowout by the Eagles. I knew the Eagles were going to go into Jerry World for the first time since 2017 and finally take care of business because without Dak Prescott, and even with Dak Prescott, they were just playing god awful football. And you kind of knew it. You kind of knew going into the season that the Cowboys um, were not going to be that great. I didn't expect them to be this bad, but when you don't address the running back position and you have a golden opportunity with all the running backs that were on the market, whether it was Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, or even somebody like a Zach Moss, um, there were a lot of guys out there for Dallas to get, and they just refused. They felt like they had, you know, the guys in house, and clearly they don't because they couldn't do a damn thing, and they haven't done a damn thing all year long, and it's pretty embarrassing. And as long as Jerry Jones is calling the shots there, um, they're not gonna get where they need to go. And when you have a coach that's in his last year of his contract, and you got a bunch of guys on the team that I mean, they came out defensively a little inspired at times, but when they face any adversity, I mean, this is a team that quits. When it rains, it pours, and if you put a hurting on Dallas early on, especially at home, um, they get demoralized really quickly, and they clearly have quit on their coach. It's very apparent Mike McCarthy's not going to come back next year. He'll be the scapegoat, and Jerry's probably going to still be in charge. Um, I mean, if we're being if we're being honest here, I mean, I think if you're Stephen Jones, I think you need to step in and have a come to Jesus meeting with your dad and tell him like, hey, dude, like the way that we're building this roster is not it. It's not the right way to build. Now, granted, they have done a good job in the draft, all things considered, um, but they do not put any premium on free agency. They do not go out and spend money. And, say what you want about the Eagles. The Eagles always try to go out and bolster their team no matter what, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's with trades. Howie Roseman will use every resource to his disposal and try to. Barry Jones just doesn't. I don't know if it's because he's 80. I don't know if it's because he has an ego and he has, to his credit, the wealthiest franchise in all sports. Um, whether it's the fact that he's got 3 Super Bowls and he wants to do it his way with his homegrown talent. It has not worked. And it's kind of unfortunate, to be honest with you, because to me, I'm a guy who wants my rivals to be good. Now, as a Michigan fan, you know, that Ohio State game, there's a reason why they call it the game. It's the most consequential game. It's the most important game because in most cases, obviously this year's different. Um, it's the most consequential game. Michigan and Ohio State are usually good every year. And prior to the college football playoff, there was national championship repercussions. Now there's Big Ten championship repercussions. And the last couple of years, there's been, as well as Big Ten championship repercussions, there's college football implications as well. Um, so it's a big game. It's a huge game. It's kind of it's going to lose its luster a bit because, you can afford to take L's. But you look at Michigan and Ohio State pretty much every year. The last couple of years, I mean, you're talking about two top 5 teams, some cases two top 3 teams, and in 2006 it was 1 versus 2, and they were both undefeated. Michigan ended up losing that game 42-39, excuse me, and they weren't in the national championship. So there's a lot riding at stake, riding with that game, and there's a lot at stake. The point I'm trying to make is you want your rival as much as you hate them, as much as you salivate when they're struggling like they are now. Um, there's nothing more satisfying. I can say this as a sports fan, as a Michigan fan. These last 3 years, beating Ohio State, ending their season essentially, and getting to the Big Ten championship, getting to the college football playoff. And it's no different in football. Like you want the Cowboys to be good. Like you want them to have a sense of, oh my God, we're going to the Super Bowl. We have a legitimate shot. And then boom, the Eagles come in there and crush their dreams. That's what makes sports great. And I said it early on, um, a couple weeks ago about wanting to play the Mets as opposed to as opposed to the Brewers. Beating your rival, in the most consequential of moments is very satisfying. And it's unfortunate because Dallas is just not very good. They are not a good football team at all. Um, and they clearly have quit on their coach and they're going to have to clean house. And, if they were smart, they would have a come to Jesus meeting with Jerry Jones and let somebody else run the team from a general manager perspective because I knew that this team was going to take a huge step back. And I said it all off season. I said that, I don't fear the Cowboys. If anything, I fear the Commanders and look where we are now. Look where we're at now. It's a sad state of affairs for the Dallas Cowboys. And I almost kind of feel sorry for them, in a lot of ways. Because you want to be able to beat your rival, when there's a lot at stake, when they are good, because it's a good feeling to beat a good team, especially that being your rival. But unfortunately, or I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I do like when Dallas sucks and they're not good, but at the same time, um, I wish they would have given us a little bit more fight, but yeah, they're just not a good football team. And then when you look at the rest of this game, what are the main takeaways? I mean, the defense just continues to play at a high level. Zach Bond has just been a huge revelation at the linebacker position. I mean, here's a guy who you only paid $1.6 million for, and he's playing at an all pro level, or at the very least, a Pro Bowl level. He has been sensational. 8 tackles yesterday, 2 forced fumbles, just all over the field where he needs to be. And this is a guy you must resign if you're Howie Roseman. You cannot make the same mistake like you did with TJ Edwards, letting him walk. When you get a gem, you got to hold on to it. And as good as he's playing, I don't think you're going to have to pay a lot of money for. Um, you gotta do everything in your power to bring him back and to have him play alongside a Nakobe team who also continues to play relatively well on a weekly basis for the most part. You got to bring this guy back. No more Ham and Eggers at linebacker, for the love of God. When you get good, solid linebacker play, it does so many good things for your defense. It helps your D line, it helps your cornerbacks, it helps your secondary, and Zach Bond has been incredible this year. I mean, what is there to say? I mean, the guy has been everything you could possibly want in a linebacker. He's where he needs to be. He makes plays. He's good in coverage, and yesterday he just took care of business and um, continues to play at a high level. And it's imperative that the Eagles bring him back. No more Zach Cunninghams, for the love of God. No more, you know, guys that you find off the street. You see a guy that plays very well in this system under Vic Fangio, and you make it a point to bring him back. You cannot let this guy walk. This guy has been a revelation at this position and has given you production unlike you've seen in quite some time. He's even playing at a better, just an absolute game changer. It's incredible. I mean, this defense is incredible. I mean, look at these numbers. They allow the second fewest yards per game. They allow the third fewest passing yards per game, the fifth fewest rushing yards per game, and the sixth fewest points per game. This is not just a good defense. This is a very good defense, and a defense that continues to take care of business. And there's going to be a lot that's going to be said about, oh, look at the competition that they're going up against. They're going up against a backup quarterback, and yeah, that's true. Um, you know, uh, Cooper Rush is terrible. There's no question about it. But how do you explain holding Joe Burrow to 17 points on the road in Cincinnati? I mean, that this defense is legit. This defense is for real. Now, granted, they're going to be tested these next three games for sure. And I'll give a bit of a preview to the Commanders game, but so far so good, man. They've answered the bell. They've come into their own. And one of the things that I've noticed from this defense that I was very critical of early on and even last year was their lack of pursuability. And shout out to Tony Romo. He called it out yesterday. You know, this team is where they need to be at all times. Um, they crash whenever they need to. They don't give up. They don't give up. A ton of space for them to do whatever. They recognize who's got the ball and they attack. And that's going to be very very key this week against somebody like Jaden Daniels. But he made it a point to bring that up. If one guy's going to be there, and let's just say he misses a tackle, there's going to be one or two guys behind them, um, and not giving up leverage and making the play. I mean, it's night and day from last year, given the way that this team pursues. It's something that you know um, we haven't seen, and to see it now and to see this defense play at a high level. I mean, look at this: second yards per game, second fewest yards per game, third fewest passing yards per game, fifth fewest rushing yards per game, and sixth fewest passing yards, or excuse me, points per game. I mean, this is a well-rounded, balanced, very good defense playing at a high level, and you love to see it. Um, Jalen Carter had a tremendous game yesterday. He was wreaking havoc on Dallas's offensive line. When he's on, he's indestructible. Our secondary, I mean, what is there to say? Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean continue to play well. I thought this was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's one of his best games of the year. Reed Blankenship was playing at a high level as well, and you really like to see it. And if Slay can stay healthy and um, you know play at a decent level, along with this infusion of young talent that we have, I think we're in really good shape. And it, all these guys are playing. It's not just one unit that's playing well and picking up the slack. The D line's getting after it. You had a Bryce Huff sighting again yesterday. Kudos to him as well. Like I mentioned, Jalen Carter's playing at a high level. Zach Bond's been unbelievable. The Kobe Dean's been solid. Our secondary is one of the best in football. Um, just tremendous stuff. Guys flying around, guys pursuing, not giving up leverage. This is a very good defense, and it's coming at a really good time. And you know, when you break in a new type of defense, and you have a guy like Vic Fangio, who cannot always be the easiest to play for, at times, because he's sort of a hard nosed guy. But he's perfect for Philly. He's perfect for this environment, and the guys are resonating, and the guys are playing at a high level, and they're where they need to be. And when you factor in the offense, and there's a lot that's been made about, the Eagles obviously have a stacked offense, But if they can just play competent defense, this defense is more than competent. This is a very good defense, and I love to see it. I love to see guys flying around, being where they need to be, and pursuing, because that was something we did not see last year. Too much cushion, too many missed tackles. These guys are you're coming in, filling, and in pursuit of the ball carrier, and it's great to see. It's something we haven't seen, Christ, in quite some time. This is more than just a competent defense. This is a defense that's playing at a high level, and you know, in a lot of ways, it's good that they kind of had a soft schedule so they can kind of get acclimated and have the opportunity to get their feet wet, and start to really put things together, because these next three games are going to be key. And I think the defense is more than ready to step up and continue to do what they're doing, even if it doesn't matter if it's a bad team or a good team. I think this defense is legit and for real. The other takeaway I have is Jalen Hurts' resolve. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who was struggling early on in the game. He obviously had the interception in the red zone. You know, I don't know if you can put all that on Jalen Hurts, because Trayvon Diggs is a playmaker. He's a guy that likes to jump routes. It was more of a great play by Trayvon Diggs, but at the same time, if you're Jalen Hurts, you got to know that Diggs has a tendency to jump routes and make plays like that. So you got to be smarter with the football. He was holding the ball way too long. Accounted for 5 sacks. He obviously had the fumble. I don't know if it was the sun, because it looked like he was having issues with that. Granted, it's no excuse. You've played in Jerry World plenty of times. You had some time. Still no excuse, but he was struggling. And I gotta say, man, the shit I've seen on social media, whether it's Twitter or just the back and forth of my friends, can we not write off a quarterback like when he's struggling initially? Can we just like watch a whole game without being like, this guy sucks? I had one buddy who was like, Jalen Hurts will not be the starting quarterback in 2026. Mark my words. It's like, calm down. Okay. We, for whatever reason, my entire life, if there's a bad stretch of football, we immediately write off the quarterback. Say what you want about Donovan McNabb, and I get it. There were some bad moments like in the Super Bowl. But how many times did we write off Donovan McNabb? How many times did we have to write off Nick Foles and Carson Wentz? And at the end, there was, people were a bit were justified at the end. But even before that, there was a lot of criticism levied his way that was just completely overstated. And then Jalen Hurts. I mean, the guy, say what you want about, and it's going to be ugly at times. There's going to be things that you see from him. There's going to be times where he holds onto the ball too long. There's going to be times where he's going to miss a wide open guy, but he's going to come back and make plays. Like he came back in the end of the first half and made a tremendous play to find Dallas Goedert in the end zone, and then he comes back in the second half and finds Johnny Wilson. I mean, it's no different with the Super Bowl. I mean, if you remember the Super Bowl, obviously he was tremendous in that game, but he had just a terrible fumble that led to a Chiefs touchdown in that game, and then he comes back and he makes play after play after play. I mean, that's what this guy does. There's going to be times where it looks ugly, but make no mistake about it, Jalen Hurts will make things right. He will find a way to make plays, and he will find a way to win, because that's what this guy does. I was skeptic early on in 2020, 2021. There were a lot of things that I saw that I'm like, this is not good. But I gave him a chance with, them bringing in AJ Brown and then bringing in a bunch of guys, and seeing where he just giving him a chance and seeing what he can do, and he's proven a lot of people wrong, including myself. It's just, I know we're a crazy fan base that has standards and is going to rake the quarterback over the coals when they deserve it, and rightfully so. He deserved to be raked over the coals a bit, but like, enough of this. Oh, Jalen Hurts is not an elite quarterback. This is what he is, and mark my words, come 2026, we will have a new starting quarterback. Like, enough of that. Like, I've seen this so many times with this team and this fan base. Um, and not just with negatives, but with positives. I mean, think about the time where Bobby Hoying comes in and has that lights out. against Cincinnati, and then everybody, anointed him the starting quarterback, and he turns out to be a complete dud. Sam Bradford in 2015, that preseason game, I think he was like 13 for 13 with 3 touchdowns. Oh, we got a franchise quarterback now. Um, we love to just make these declarative statements and these staunch absolutes about our quarterback when it's a long season and it's a long game. I mean, there's a lot that can change in a football game. Think about the second game of the year of the Eagle season against Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta had virtually no chance of winning that game, and then look what happened after the Saquon drop. So a lot can change. We got to settle down a bit, okay? Because I've seen it time and time again. How many times did they write off Donovan McNabb, um, and say, just the most outlandish shit about him, and that we need a new quarterback when this guy was dealing with James Trash and Todd Stinkston, for crying out loud. Um, guys, and even Nick Foles. I will never forget. It was the year after we won the Super Bowl. We were playing the Cleveland Browns in a preseason game, and he struggled mightily. The team struggled mightily, and everyone was like, "This is why we should. This is why we start Carson Wentz. Nick Foles, was a fluke, and this and that. This was a real thing." And I know Nick Foles is beloved now, and he should be. I mean, he's the only quarterback that won a Super Bowl. I love Nick Foles, um, but there was a time where Eagles fans, even after he won us a Super Bowl, we're in that preseason game, we're like, "Oh, this guy stinks. He's a fluke. This is why we have Carson Wentz." And then, Christ, how many times did we write off Carson Wentz all the time? When he was a starting quarterback. Now, granted, that last season with Carson Wentz was rough, and some of the haters, turned out to be right in some aspects with Wentz. Though I do think the team had something to do with that. But granted, Wentz had to do a better job with handling that. He didn't. And now we're seeing what Jalen Hurts. It's like, dude, let this guy figure it out. Don't crucify him after one bad half of football and make these just outlandish statements. Let this guy figure it out, and chances are he will, because that's all he does. All he does is figure it out. All he does is get better. All he does is win games. Like, enough. And it's so weird to me that we have all these dumbasses on social media, and these weird pockets of Eagles fans that just wanna be right about the quarterback sucking and the quarterback not being it. It's weird. It's really weird to me. It's like, whoever the quarterback is, I hope wins us a Super Bowl. Like, everyone, it's just so weird. Think about all the times. Think about the time where it was Wentz and Foles, right? Like, there was a team Wentz and a team Foles, right? And there was no in between. You had to pick one side. And it's just like, no, both guys were very instrumental in winning us a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz got us a first round bye. We wouldn't have won a Super Bowl if he didn't. And Nick Foles came in and was incredible and was lights out and got us our first Super Bowl. Like, why do we have to pick and choose? Why do we always have to write off a quarterback? Why do we have to have these pocket of fans that, for whatever reason, have to be right about the quarterback's demise? It's weird. It blows my mind, but it's a real thing, and you see it all the time on social media. And I don't know why people want to write off Jalen Hurts. I don't know why people want to see him fail, because the guy has just overcome adversity. Whether it was in college, whether it was in the pros, I don't get it. He's an easy guy to root for. He's a perfect Philadelphia Eagle. A guy that works hard, a guy that carries himself a certain way, that has swagger, a guy that just keeps getting better. I don't understand why people want to write this guy off. I don't understand why people want to be right in his demise. It's weird, and it needs to stop. Let this guy cook. Let this guy figure it out, because chances are he will, because all he does is win. Um, and we've done it with McNabb. We didn't really get it with Vic, because it was a weird time, and he was kind of hurt, or throughout the time he was starting quarterback. Foles, whether it was the first go, whether it was um, the year after they won the Super Bowl, trust me, That was a real thing. I'll never forget all the Eagles fans talking shit on Nick Foles after that Browns preseason game. They were just like, "This guy sucks. This guy's a fluke. This is why this is Wentz's team," and yada yada yada. It's a real thing, and then obviously, throughout Wentz's tenure, people just could not wait to just jump on his throat whenever he had a bad game, and you're starting to see this with Jalen Hurts now. Um, I get it. The quarterback position in Philadelphia is under a microscope, and there's standards, but we got to calm down a bit because Jalen Hurts is the real deal, and there might be times where it doesn't look great, but chances are he's going to figure out and win. That's just what he does, and he always finds a way, and I think people need to relax a bit. So now that we get into the meat and potatoes of our schedule, because if you look at our schedule now, obviously we got a huge game Thursday night. This is a big one. This is a big one. A lot riding on this game. Obviously, the Eagles and Washington lost to the Steelers. Kind of came down to earth a little bit, but played hard. They still are a legit football team that are ahead of schedule, and they even though they lost, I still take them very seriously. But that's going to be a big game on Thursday night, and then we kind of get a mini bye. Um, and get 10 days off. And then we go to LA, which is key to have that, small bye against the Rams, who are healthy. And I don't know how they're 4-4 given all the injuries, but that just shows you that Sean McVay is a tremendous coach. He gets the most out of these guys, even if they're not at full strength. They're always going to be a formidable foe. And now that they're healthy, I definitely would not sleep on them. They look poised to make a run. And then next Sunday, they're at Baltimore, which is going to be a really tough game when Lamar's wheeling and dealing. He's indestructible, and then you factor in King Henry, just an absolute beast. Um, that's going to be a tough game. And then they host the Carolina Panthers, who are playing better, but granted they are playing weak teams. In the Saints and the Giants, they should take care of business there. Then they host Pittsburgh, who with Russell Wilson has a new lease on life. That's going to be interesting. They have obviously a really good defense, but I do think ultimately the Eagles have better players. And then we're at Washington the following week. It's going to be key to at least split against the Commanders. If we can sweep them, given this new look Commanders team, that's obviously going to be huge and pretty much put a dagger in the Washington Commanders' chances of winning the division, and then Dallas, and then the Giants, which are to me two W's, and then Carolina, I think, is pretty much a W. So you're 7-2 now. You factor in Giants, Cowboys, and the Panthers are going to be W's, so that's 10 wins. I definitely think we can beat. I definitely think we can beat the Commanders. I definitely think we could beat the Rams and the Steelers. The Baltimore game is tough because it's in Baltimore and they're playing really hot. They're playing really good football. I mean, Lamar only has one loss to NFC teams. He's like 25-1 or some crazy stat. That's going to be a really tough game, but um, in particular the Commanders, really big matchup. A game with first place implications. Whoever wins that game will be in first place. And you look at the Commanders, I mean, they've done a pretty good job offensively. They're fourth in yards per game. They're 11th in passing yards per game, fourth in rushing yards per game, and fourth in points per game. Commanders is really Jaden Daniels and keeping contained. You love to see this Eagles defense pursuing at a high level like they're pursuing now. And hopefully that's gonna pay dividends against the Commanders because Jaden Daniels is a tricky cat and he can do a lot of things. And he's a very dynamic quarterback. So the key with this game really is to keep him contained, keep him off the field. Because defensively, they're 14th in yards per game, so they're middle of the road there. They're fifth. They allow the fifth least in passing yards, and now that they have Marshawn Lattimore, um, they their passing defense is only going to get better. Obviously, Dan Quinn, like the Eagles, came in and pretty much turned some things around, and now they're playing at a decent level. There's question marks going into the season, but it looks like they're starting to pick things up. Um, they are 28th in most rushing yards allowed, so that's going to be key for the Eagles. And then they're 12th. They have the 12th fewest points per game. So they're playing better, but there's definitely leaks, especially in the rushing defense. To me, I think it's pretty simple: pound the rock, ball control, ball control, ball control. Keep Jaden Daniels off the field. Hopefully Saquon Barkley. Obviously he hurt his arm in the game. Hopefully it's not too serious. It was not one of his better games, but he didn't really have to be because of who you were going up against, and Dallas's offense wasn't going to do anything. But you did see Kenny Gainwell starting to gain some momentum late in the season. We saw Will Shipley play well, not just in terms of rushing, but in the return game. He had some nice returns. Credit to special teams there. Cooper DeJean, another nice return by him as well. That guy's got he's got very deceptive athletic ability, and he's been really good in the return game as well. So shout out to special teams. They played at a really high level. I didn't really mention them, but they played well. Ultimately, when it comes to this Commanders game, it really comes down to this: you gotta control the clock, you gotta pound the rock. Win on first down. They did a really nice job. The Eagles did yesterday, winning on first down, opening up the playbook. And if they're gonna load up the box on Barkley or Gainwell or even Shipley if they get him involved, then that's when you start to attack them with your passing attack. And then AJ Brown again, just another great game by him. It's going to be interesting to see him and Lattimore go up against each other. And then Devontae as well, getting him more involved to when they load up the box. Jahan Dotson, how about this? Back-to-back games making incredible catches. It's not much, but you do see his potential, and I'm very curious to see going up against his old team, and if they try to do everything in their power to try to stop AJ and Devontae. Um, you got to factor that he's going to be very motivated to, um, you know, get revenge on his former team that gave up on him in 2 years. Who I do think when getting him involved, he does have something to offer. He does have athletic ability. He does have a big playability. He just hasn't been a factor in this offense really, but he is starting to come along a little bit. He's starting to show that he can make plays and why he is a first round pick. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they utilize him in this game. Because you have to factor that Washington's going to try to stop the passing attack as well. And they've done a good job this year. They're fifth. They have the fifth least passing yards per game, or they give up the least or the fifth fewest passing yards per game. So I'm curious to see if this is going to be a Jahan Dotson revenge game because he is starting to come along. Even though it's like a play or two, you do start to see his playmaking ability. So pound the rock with Barkley, with Hurts, Gainwell. Open that passing game if you need to when it's available, and keep Jaden Daniels off the field. Because they're 28th in most rushing yards allowed, so there is a weak spot there that I think the Eagles should exploit, and I think they will exploit, and I think they get the W here and take firm control of first place. So if they do those things, I think we'll be fine. It's really interesting. The Eagles usually, because they've always been in the mix, they usually play pretty consequential games. Sunday night, Monday night. Haven't really remembered the last time we had a real consequential Thursday night football game, but it's going to be a consequential one for sure. And the Commanders have played very well. They're way ahead of schedule. Jaden Daniels, it looks like he's going to be an elite quarterback for many years to come if he stays healthy. So, on a short week, if we can get this W, given the fact that we travel to LA the following week against a healthy Rams team, and then Baltimore at Baltimore the following week. Um, that would be a huge win. It'd be a huge feather in their cap to beat a team like the Commanders who look like the real deal, even though they lost against the Steelers. I think that this is going to be a nice little test for that they win. I'm gonna say Eagles win 34-28, something like that. I think I think the Commanders will get theirs. Um, if it's a hopefully it's a decisive victory, but I do think that the Commanders offense will get after it. So being a short week, I think it's the defense will struggle a bit, but I do think ultimately they'll get the job done. But hopefully it is a decisive game. Hopefully this defense, no matter who they're going up against, shuts down everybody. They did hold Joe Burrow to 17 points, and that's a pretty dynamic offense. Say what you want about Cincinnati, but they do have a great offense, and they that was a big win for the Eagles, and it shows you that they don't just beat up on bad teams or bad offenses. They can go toe to toe with a good offense. So hopefully this week they can do that. But I do think the Eagles win on Thursday. Before I get into a little rant about how unwatchable basketball is, I want to let you guys know about our sponsor, Decals by Aaron. I know some of you out there. Obviously, Jesse's a big Delco guy, the guy who runs Old City Sports. Shout out to Jesse. Is a big Delco guy, and I know there's a lot of proud Delconians. I guess that's how you call it, or I guess that's what you refer to Delco folks. But if you want to get your Delco gear, you want Delco merchandise to rock out, go to Decals by Aaron. You can go to Decals by Aaron on Facebook, facebook.com, Decals by Aaron, or go to decalsbyaaron.com for all your great Delco drip. That is Decals by Aaron. You can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Decals by Aaron, or go to decalsbyaaron.com. So I don't know if you guys watched that Sixers game last night. I watched a little bit at the end. There's really not a ton of takeaway in terms of that. I mean, Jarrett McCain had a really good game, put up 27 points. So that's good to see. But regular season basketball is so unwatchable. I mean, you want to talk about just not caring and just really having a hard time watching. I mean, listen, I understand that late in the game, when it's close, the last minute in basketball is always the longest. And I get it. You're trying to get a possession, you're trying to foul, in order to get the ball back. I get the strategy. Like I get what they're trying to do, but we got to speed things up. Like if you're the NBA and you know that like teams do this, and it's been around forever, right? The like got to speed it up because that game at the end took forever, forever. And it sucks because you look at Jarrett McCain, he had a great game, and it's a good takeaway, but it's such a rough watch, and the NBA's got to do something about making timeouts quicker because these timeouts feel like they take an eternity. Like enough, like we get what's going on, we get what the score is, no pun intended, but the NBA's got to do a better job of making these timeouts quick. You know, it, we know what the strategy is, and I think it is an important part of basketball, and there's a lot of um, consequences from it. And I'm not saying you got to make teams not foul, like it's part of the game, but the timeouts, the reviews, like let's go, like make it quick. Like it's gonna be a long minute, but we got to make it quicker because I'm having a hard time watching basketball as a whole. It's not just the team, with the injuries, with now Maxi being out for a couple weeks, and now Joel in that situation. But at the very least, make it a watchable game. Enough with these long, drawn out timeouts late in the game. We got to shorten these. I understand its strategy, and I'm all for it, and I get it. Got to make it quicker. Got to make it quicker because it's unacceptable. It's unwatchable, and the NBA just continues to make an ass out of themselves. Like I have no interest in the Emirates Cup. I don't care. Um, Nobody cares about the in-season tournament. You know, it's getting to the point where it's like, forget about Christmas because everybody wants the NBA season to be shortened to Christmas and then till April. It's getting to the point where like I'll just tune back in late March. I mean that's the way this is trending. Obviously with the Sixers, when you factor in the injuries to Maxey and Embiid, there's just not a premium to watch. And then especially with the Eagles playing at such a high level with consequential games coming up, the Sixers, um, it's going to be a hard watch just because of the injuries. But these games, dude, they just drag, and these timeouts late in games take forever. And it's like, dude, regular season basketball is unwatchable as it is because of the load management, and these guys don't give 110% like they used to. And then you want to factor in the long stoppage of play, like adios, amigo. I'm out. Like I'm honestly at the point where by like St. Patrick's Day, I'll start watching. I mean, that's it's such a rough watch, and yeah, the NBA's got some soul searching to do because it is not a good product anymore, and it's sad. It really is sad because the NBA, you know, with baseball making a comeback like they're making, and then NHL. Say what you want about the ratings, it's a far better product. It's a far superior product in so many different ways. I will take playoff hockey over playoff basketball any day of the week, um, or even regular season hockey over regular season basketball. It's NBA is becoming unwatchable, and they got to do something with these late game timeouts. They're way too long, and you know that they're going to foul, and there's going to be timeouts late in games, but we got to speed up the game. I mean, the NFL, say what you want about the lack of hitting, at least they're trying to make the game more exciting. And I do think that there are elements of the game that have become more exciting. You obviously, I mean, look at the Eagles. I mean, they can play defense at a high level, with some of these rule changes. And I think these teams are doing a better job of adapting. But the NBA's got to figure out something because it's getting to the point where I, it's unwatchable. I can't watch. So that's a little rant there. Hopefully you guys have a good week. I wanted to do a longer show this time and give a more in-depth preview to the Commanders game because it is a big game and it is a short week. I really like where this Eagles team is headed. I think this defense is playing at a good level, at a high level at the right time. The Eagles offense, um, you know, is playing well, and AJ coming back has been tremendous, and he's playing like one of the best receivers in football. You got Dallas Goedert coming back. Jordan Mailata comes off of IR, so that's good. They're healthy at the right time. You even see guys like Jahan Dotson making a play or two. So even though they got a tough stretch coming up, I feel really good about this team. They really should be 8-1 given the Atlanta game, but it is what it is. Hopefully they've learned from that, and they um, you know use that as motivation going forward, and show that you can never get complacent no matter how close to victory you are. So I feel good about this team. I'm really excited for Thursday Night Football. It's a very consequential game, and I look very much forward to it. So enjoy your day, enjoy your week. Happy Veterans Day to all those who serve.